In many cases, they're really, really good, high quality, adaptive structures. So we had the Cork City Partnership as an example, the Leos and the Enterprise Ireland's. So that traditional entrepreneurship support models, there are lots of them there, and not just in Ireland, lots of them across Europe. I think to Dermot's point, there are lots of other organisations doing this type of work, whether they're connected to social inclusion or entrepreneurship, and there's better communication always needed across the organisations to avoid kind of duplication. I think, and then there's more things we can do better in terms of integration. So the organisations that are involved in social protection or social welfare, working with organisations that are supporting whether it's immigrants or marginalised groups, education, entrepreneurship development. They all can learn from each other and maybe integrate better. So I think, and then we've talked about there are blockages in the system, so the examples of people that come into our countries that have brilliant skills and capacity, but we're putting roadblocks in front of those people. And then I think really interesting, the piece I wrote down is that maybe parts of the system need to recalibrate our values and what we're valuing in terms of whether that's career guidance. You know, you must go to university, you must go this pathway. If you don't go that pathway, it's not a success. You know, if you're going down the arts or the cultural route, you know, why are you not an engineer or a scientist? So I suppose that piece of recalibration around values is really important. I think then to talk about the personal or the person, lots of really good examples of people who have come through the journey, whether it's Tulawani or the now Cook that's come through the growing conversations. I think that we have to always reflect on that, and I'm not sure, I think it was Tulawani said, like, why don't you ask me what I want and what I can do rather than telling me what I should do. That human connection, and I think Alan spoke about it. In Ireland, we love to talk, we love to meet, maybe sometimes too much, but that human connection is really important, particularly from a social inclusion perspective. Irrespective, it could be somebody with disabilities, it could be somebody marginalised for socioeconomic reasons, it could be an immigrant, it could be for lots of different reasons. Actually, the conversation is the first piece that has to be done rather than the letter in the post. Or you must come to this appointment with your case officer to discuss what we're going to do with you. Sometimes that human connection is really what helps. And I think that piece where got people to reflect on their strengths, their weaknesses and the opportunities and the threats. That personal reflection outside of the organisational reflection is a really important skill to, and maybe it's something that people can take away and build into their engagements. I think then the third strand was around entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. And it's okay not to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, it is.
It's great if you are and do become an entrepreneur, but it could be really good to have some entrepreneurship skills, no matter what you do. So I think that's an important thing to remember. Profit is not a bad word, as I think Marie came across. So social enterprises, there's two words in social enterprise: social and enterprise. So enterprise is a business. I set up and ran a social enterprise, and I'm the chair of the board of directors of a social enterprise. We make money, and we invest that money back in the company or in the communities that we work with. And that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. Being an entrepreneur is really hard work. We have a really hard-working entrepreneur here in the room. It's 7 days a week sometimes. It's 14-hour days. It's doing the stuff that others won't do, or you can't do, or you have to do it because you can't afford to pay somebody else to do it. And to be honest about that, because that sometimes is the reason why things fail, because we're not honest about it. And that's okay. If you want Saturdays and Sundays to be with your family, great. That's really important. As you know, if my wife was here listening to me, she'd go, why didn't you think about that 25 years ago when you set up your social enterprise? And I think the other piece that came out of the research that the two Elena's presented was that there are lots of other macroeconomic, social and cultural aspects that affect the reasons why people get involved in entrepreneurship or consider being an entrepreneur. And then the last piece, I suppose, then the strand is around education and training. And I think in particular when we're talking about social inclusion, for those hard to reach groups and the low skills groups, I think lots of people use the word making it accessible, using the right language, reality versus theory. So the theory should inform our processes for engagement, but it shouldn't be what we present to the stakeholders. I think the piece around the natural skills, starting the process to focus on those natural skills that people have, then that can be the pathway to teach them the thought skills. And I think a really interesting image I have in my head is that it's a non-linear process. So people will go down this alleyway, reverse, go down another alleyway, and maybe take many different directions in their journey. And I think, if we're developing programs and supports, actually the technical content we present or engage with is really important. But I think if we see from the growing conversations piece, actually what was really most important was the bus. And that's stuff that we might completely forget about. We create this fantastic program in a beautiful garden and nobody comes because they actually physically can't get there. And then I think the last piece I'll leave you with then is that I suppose if we design our interventions to be solution focused rather than problem based, I suppose it's a fault of mine is that I'm always looking for the solution, but maybe sometimes not thinking about the problem, but sometimes we design programs to solve a problem rather than to develop a solution. And it's a different perception that you're coming with a different positive attitude. So I think there's a huge amount of learning from today. I think what's brilliant is to see the expertise in the room. What I would encourage you all to do is that this project has created the platform, the internet platform. So don't leave here without figuring out how to get on it. So talk to Jan over there, figure out how you can share your experiences and how you can learn from others, because unless we do that, we end up in our pillars with our tunnel and we think we're doing a great job, but there's somebody just down the road doing an even better job. And so again, thanks to Terry and all of the team behind the scenes for organising it. Thanks to the speakers for taking the time out of their busy days to engage with you. And thank you all for your participation. And safe home. And for those international visitors, make sure you have a nice pint of Murphy's tonight.